In the early morning hours of July 8, 1995, Stephanie C Gibson left the Memories Bar in Peoria, Illinois, accompanied by Arlie Ray Davis. Stephanie would never be seen or heard from again. This is the story of Peoria's missing women. Stephanie C Gibson was born on July 1st of 1947. At the time of her disappearance, she was 48 years old, weighed between 190 and 210 pounds, and stood at 5 feet 6 inches. Stephanie had green eyes and brown hair that some have described as beginning to gray prior to her disappearance. Stephanie is white, and she is said to have a mental disability. Both of her ears are pierced, and she had a tattoo of a broken heart on her upper left arm. Stephanie was last seen leaving the Memories Bar in the 800 block of Main Street in Peoria, Illinois, around 2:30 a.m. on the morning of July 8, 1995. She was accompanied by Arlie Ray Davis, and the two left the area in his blue 1979 Dodge Dart, license plate number MMJ296. She's not been seen since. At the time of her disappearance, she was wearing a tight-fitting black shirt with diamond-shaped designs paired with black spandex pants and black sneakers. She was also wearing a pair of earrings. Now, Arlie Davis claimed that he and Stephanie had gone to see the Kingston Mines after they had left the Memories Bar, but there's no evidence to corroborate this claim. Following Stephanie's disappearance, her friends and family spent weeks searching for her. Among the areas they searched were the rural roads where serial killer Joseph Miller had dumped the bodies of multiple prostitutes in 1993. And they also searched Illinois Route 8. Now, as it turns out, Stephanie was only one of a number of women considered to be potential victims of Arlie Ray Davis. In 1998, Arlie Ray Davis was convicted and sentenced to death for the murder of Laurie Gwinn. On the night of August 20th, 1995, Laurie had been seen by a police officer who was a friend of hers at a tavern in Peoria known as Graff's. This officer also saw Arlie Davis at the bar that night. The bartender of the tavern that night also testified that she had seen both Laurie and Davis at the bar. Now, according to the bartender, she witnessed Arlie Davis, who had been to the tavern multiple times before and had introduced himself as Jim Smith, arrive at the bar around 5:30 p.m., and he was accompanied by another man by the name of James Lindsley. It wasn't until sometime between 7:30 and 8 p.m. that the bartender saw Laurie Gwinn arrive. During the course of the night, she spent several hours playing pool with Davis and Lindsley. The bartender also witnessed Laurie and Davis kiss at one point. After the bartender announced last call around 1:15 a.m., she saw Davis and Lindsley leave the bar accompanied by Laurie. The bartender left after them and noticed that all three were gone, but Laurie's car was still in the parking lot. Her car would later be recovered by police still sitting in the Graff's parking lot. At this time, Davis and Lindsley had been staying in a tent in the yard of a relative. Now, this relative would later testify that while he had not heard any strange noises in the early morning hours of August 21st, 1995, he did wake up to find Davis and Lindsley packing up their tent and preparing to leave. Davis had claimed that they were going to camp in a nearby area, but this relative would not see Davis or Lindsley again until the trial in 1998. So once Davis and Lindsley left, they made it to the highway and kept going. They were pulled over at one point in Kansas, where Lindsley was ultimately arrested for a warrant in the state of Washington. Davis eventually made his way to Tucson, Arizona, where he was pulled over by police and arrested in connection with the murder of Laurie Gwinn. After Laurie had left the bar with Davis and Lindsley, she had failed to show up to work. She was reported missing on August 21st, 1995, and her body was found the following day in the Hennepin Canal. She was nude and missing pieces of jewelry that she was known to always wear. A forensic pathologist examined Laurie's body and discovered that she had multiple injuries, including bruises, torn skin, and broken nails. There was also evidence of a sexual assault. The ultimate cause of death was determined to be strangulation and blunt force injuries. The case unfolded rather quickly, and police were ultimately given a full story of what had happened by James Lindsley. After the arrest in Kansas, Lindsley quickly opened up about what had happened, and he eventually testified during the trial of Arlie Ray Davis. So according to Lindsley, Davis offered to give Laurie a ride back home because she had had too much to drink at the bar that night. After she was in the car, he told her that he was going to drop off Lindsley at home first. And once they arrived at the relative's house, where they had been sleeping in a tent in the yard, Laurie began to get scared. Quickly enough, Davis grabbed Laurie by the arm with one hand and began to choke her with the other. Davis forced Laurie into his tent, and Lindsley, terrified of what may happen if he tried to stop Davis, stayed in the car. Lindsley testified that Davis had lit a candle in the tent, and because of this, he could see the shadows of Laurie and Davis in the tent together. Lindsley never saw Laurie's body move, but he could tell from the shadows in the tent that Davis was raping her. At one point, Davis stopped and left the tent, only to return again later and continue his assault of Laurie's body. Eventually, he left the tent again, and Lindsley put Laurie's body in Davis's car. They drove out to the Hennepin Canal, and they dumped her body before returning to the house and packing up their tent. According to Lindsley, Davis made multiple stops well away from Peoria to throw away multiple items from the car. He also stopped at a pawn shop where it is assumed that he pawned Laurie's jewelry for cash. Lindsley maintains that he did not participate in the rape or killing of Laurie Gwinn. Though it may seem that his story was made up to win him favor with prosecutors, he not only said that he didn't expect them to take it easy on him in return for his cooperation, he even directly turned down an offer of 20 years in prison for his testimony against Davis. Lindsley rejected the offer and testified anyway. He never asked for any special treatment in return for his story of what had happened. Testimony from a cellmate of Davis's who claims Davis told him about the murder also lines up with Lindsley's story. Davis claims, however, that there was nowhere to secure his court documents during the lead-up to the trial, and therefore he believes that the cellmate went through his papers, found the information he needed there, and then pretended that he had been told about the murder. Whether this is true or not, we can't be certain. However, the testimony of multiple people during the trial of Arlie Ray Davis lines up with Lindsley's story of what happened. Davis was ultimately found guilty and sentenced to death in 1998, a ruling which was upheld by the Illinois State Supreme Court. Following Davis's trial, he became a suspect in the case of Ginny Miles. Ginny had disappeared from Peoria in December of 1993. Her body was discovered 4 months later by 2 fishermen. She had been partially buried in a shallow grave on the banks of the Salt Creek. While awaiting his sentence on death row, Davis was asked to give a blood sample to compare to evidence from the Ginny Miles case. Davis adamantly refused to cooperate even after ordered to do so by the courts. Following a second court order stating that Department of Corrections officials may use all reasonable and necessary force to retrieve a blood sample, Davis was finally forced to comply. In October of 2002, Arlie Ray Davis died of a heart attack while awaiting his punishment on death row. It wasn't until after his death that officials were able to announce that his DNA sample had been a match to the evidence collected in the Ginny Miles case. This evidence proved that he'd had sex with Ginny prior to her death, but unfortunately there wasn't enough evidence to prove that he had been responsible for her murder. Not only was Davis the last person to have seen Stephanie Gibson before she disappeared, he was convicted of the murder of Laurie Gwinn and connected via DNA evidence to the case of Ginny Miles, but he is also believed to be responsible for 3 other missing persons cases in the Peoria area. Cheryl Louise Murray was last seen in Peoria, Illinois on April 1, 1994. She was a white female with blonde hair and blue eyes. She stood between 5'1" and 5'2", and weighed between 100 to 115 pounds at the time of her disappearance. Her right middle finger had been amputated at the first knuckle. She may have been using the last name of Smith prior to her disappearance. Family members have said that she used to frequent the same bars as Arlie Davis. Loretta Tinkham was last seen in Peoria, Illinois on November 3rd of 1994. She was a white female with red hair and hazel eyes. She stood at 4'10" and weighed 97 pounds. She was reported missing just before her 31st birthday. She may have been using the last names of Skeeter or York prior to her disappearance. Sheryl Murwin was last seen in Peoria, Illinois in June of 1994. Cheryl also went by the last name of Walker. According to those who knew her, Cheryl knew Arlie Ray Davis, and they believed that she had run into him either through partying or prostitution. A skull found in Kickapoo Creek in 2001 was eventually identified in 2003 as that of Cheryl Merwin's. Police believe that all of these cases are connected to Arlie Ray Davis. Though Laurie Gwynn's case was solved and Davis was imprisoned for her murder, the other 5 cases mentioned in today's video are still unsolved. Only 2 of the other women's bodies have ever been found to any degree. Stephanie Gibson and Sheryl Murray have never been seen or heard from again since their disappearances. Now, if you have any information pertaining to any of the cases mentioned in today's video, I would strongly urge you to contact law enforcement. You can contact the Peoria Police Department about these cases by calling the number 309-494-8277, or you can also call the Illinois State Police at the number 309-693-5016. The case numbers for Stephanie, Cheryl, and Loretta are provided in the description box down below. For a full list of resources used in today's case, I have that in the pinned comment underneath this video. Now, I would love to hear your thoughts on this case. Do you think that all of these cases are linked? Do you feel unsure about that? And especially if you happen to come across any information on Sheryl Murwin, I would love to know where you found it, because I had a lot of trouble finding, honestly, anything about her case. So just remember to please remain respectful in the comments down below, and please help me to continue putting these cases back in the public eye by sharing. And that can be whether you're sharing this video or another video on this case or any of the resources that I have provided for you down below. Just keep sharing. The chances are that somebody somewhere knows something about one of the cases that are covered on this channel or any other channel like this one. And if we can get the right case seen by the right person, it could be enough to crack a case wide open. And of course, finally, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I will see you all again soon for another case.